All right, folks, we have another crazy article from the Silver Academy that just came out today, June 30th, titled India's Silver Squeeze, 647 times spike in the import of silver from the UAE. Read to the very end. We reveal why India will wipe out silver inventories at breakneck speed. Before we jump into this video, if you do like silver stacking and you want to be updated on a daily basis of the newest, latest, freshest, most up-to-date, recent information in the world of precious metals, then make sure you click subscribe, click the bell so you get notified as soon as I upload, and make sure to like this video if you do like this video. I will post the article in the description. So we do know, let's give a little context. India imported more silver in the first 4 months of this year alone than the entirety of last year. So we already see countries from the BRICS buying massive amounts of silver, including China as well. So India's silver surge, government to address UAE import spike. The government is focusing on the 647 times spike in the import of silver from the UAE since the beginning of this calendar year, according to sources. New Delhi will soon take up the matter with Abu Dhabi. The Indian government is set up to engage in discussions with the UAE regarding a dramatic increase in silver imports. Since the beginning of this year, silver imports from the UAE have skyrocketed by an astounding 647 times, raising significant concerns among Indian officials. You have to ask yourself why. Why are the biggest countries, why are all the most powerful banks like JP Morgan and many others, why are all these wealthiest investors, why is everyone accumulating so much gold and silver when the prices haven't really done too much? It's like they know something that nobody else does. This unprecedented surge is largely attributed to the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement between India and the UAE, which came into effect in May of 2022. The agreement offers certain trade concessions that have evidently influenced the silver trade dynamics. Government data reveals that overall silver imports into India have experienced a tenfold increase during the first 4 months of this year, January through April, reaching a substantial $3.16 billion. Notably, the UAE has emerged as India's primary source of silver imports during this period. And that's something that I wasn't too sure on of where they were accumulating this from, but this is, it's nice to know more of the story now, to connect more of these dots. The development warrants close attention from investors and market analysts, as it could have far-reaching implications for India's precious metals market, trade balance, and economic relations with the UAE. The outcome of the upcoming discussions between New Delhi and Abu Dhabi may potentially lead to policy adjustments or trade recalibrations, which could impact the silver market and related industries. As this situation unfolds, stakeholders in the financial and commodity sector should monitor for any policy changes or trade agreements that may rise from these talks, as they could influence investment strategies and market dynamics in the precious metal space. So I do think this is very, very important to note, especially now that we know the UAE is involved in this. So here is the second half of this article. Reliance, Ola Electric, Rajesh Exports agree to build batteries in India. The companies were among 4 bidders selected by the government in March to build a total of 50 gigawatt hours of battery storage and capacity under PLI program. So, this is some more stuff. They are agreeing to build battery cells under $2.3 billion government incentive program. So India last year finalized a scheme to encourage companies to make battery cells locally as it seeks to establish a domestic supply chain for clean transport and renewable energy storage to meet its decarbonization goals. The companies must set up their battery manufacturing facility within 2 years, after which they will be eligible for incentives. These will be paid over a 5-year period based on the sale of batteries manufactured in India, the government said in its statement. So India is also in the top 3 for manufacturing silver zinc batteries for torpedoes. The large ones use up to 11,000 ounces of silver each. And yeah, that's what we were talking about when we were talking about like the 50, the 500 ounces of silver in a single Tomahawk missile, but up to 11,000 ounces in each torpedo. So military uses a huge amount of silver, but those numbers aren't even incorporated in the annual demand numbers from the Silver Institute. Plus, aerospace isn't either. So, we're talking about solar being the number one sector of silver on paper, but in reality, there's much bigger sectors like military that use way more silver. So if we're already setting record-breaking supply deficits year after year, hundreds of millions of ounces in the red, actually over 500 million ounces in the last 3 years alone, these numbers are way, way worse. So we are talking about a shortage that nobody can comprehend. The silver cannot be substituted for another metal like lithium because submerged weapons need to be corrosion resistant and waterproof. They also need to hold the charge over the years. 311 kilograms is 10,970 ounces of silver. That is insane. That is insane to think about. That is insane to think about. Just one uses 11,000 ounces. So future torpedo battery, primary silver oxide zinc battery. It's under development. This lab is developing heavyweight torpedoes, hence requirement will be large. This battery is over 15 feet in length. We were first to identify that India uses a variety of Arab countries to smuggle silver as tax dodging strategies. And then you have a source below on that. Silver prices gained 6% last week, and India is buying silver first quarter of 24 more than all of 2023, which I mentioned previously. So you have some numbers down here. Silver prices gained 6% from the previous week, and India is buying silver. So silver imports in 2019, 5,968 tons, 2020, 2,219, 2021, 2,773, 2022, 9,450, which was the all-time high, as we all remember. And then you have 2023, it shot back down to 3,475, and then only the first quarter, the first 4 months of 2024, 3,730 tons, already more than last year alone. So, this stuff is real. We aren't making up these numbers. This is real stuff that you have to be aware of. So, staying strict with our thesis, silver is the opposite of the dollar, meaning that the US dollar can be printed to pay for wars, whereas silver cannot be printed. We all know politicians abandoned a precious metals-backed monetary system so they didn't have to answer constituents, and it's freed them from going up on adventures, and this is an old trick. Here's the full story below. You guys can check out if you wanted to continue on this. Click on the links below, and this should convince all that military's use of silver is number one in the world by far. You can also go to silverwars.com that shows from 1960 onward of the military's involvement with silver. So, remember, this is just torpedoes. We have not begun to report all silver in space stations, spacecraft, satellites, surveillance, you name it, silver's included into it, but a lot of that is not reported by the Silver Institute. So, folks, when I talk about a silver shortage, if you are not up to date watching my channel or reading these types of articles, you have no idea on on how extreme the situation is, and that's also why when you see articles from people that try to say that it's exaggerated or saying, XYZ, they have no idea how severe the situation is, and that's why I say if you're going to do your homework, make sure you get the answers correct. Some other very important information regarding the BRICS in India is this article, how the Silver Institute figured out how to play both sides, give them both cheap silver. We have the U.S. silver crisis, Mexico production collapsing, in which Mexico is the biggest producer of silver, which is very concerning. So India quartered by the Silver Institute, serving them as the de facto arms broker. Number one, silver is the opposite of the US dollar, meaning that the US dollar can be printed to pay for wars, whereas silver cannot be printed. We all know politicians abandoned a precious metals-backed monetary system so they didn't have to answer for constituents. It freed them up to go on adventures, and this is an old trick in the signal of every failed empire. Rome debased her currency from 97% to 4%, silver purity, to do likewise. And that's a great point, but listen. Since we know that silver rises when the dollar falls, and we know the dollar inevitably is going to collapse completely, entirely, then what does that say about silver? That it will come out on top eventually when the dollar does. The US dollar and precious metals, and I say that because anyone who says silver will never do anything genuinely has to believe that the dollar will strengthen and will hold its value for the foreseeable future. And nobody in their right mind thinks that. So if anyone tries to say, oh, silver won't do anything, then you have to tell them to admit that they genuinely believe the dollar will hold its value and won't collapse or crash in the next 10, 15, 20 years, because that's the only way silver won't be able to do anything. Number two, the US dollar and precious metals usually have an inverse relationship. Unfortunately, gold and silver are denominated in US dollars. This means precious metals are bought and sold using the dollar. As a result, when the currency strengthens, investors can buy silver at cheaper value. Conversely, when the dollar weakens, precious metals get more expensive. The relationship between silver and US dollars is characterized by an inverse correlation. When the dollar strengthens, the cost of silver typically remains low, while when the dollar weakens, price of precious metals tend to rise. The inverse relationship is particularly evident during economic crisis when investors turn to precious metals as safe havens, such as interest rates, inflation, monetary policy, geopolitical events, supply, demand, influence. All of those things are going on right now, especially with the BRICS meeting in October, the November election, then given all the, India getting all the silver. I mean, everything is pointing towards silver. It makes no sense to anyone thinking that to try to debate otherwise or try to throw a case otherwise. Due to its dollar-denominated nature, the value of the US dollar impacts silver prices. So the US monetary system is a debt-based model that must inflate or it dies. Right now, US has about $34 trillion in debt, and servicing the debt is the number one line item on the US budget. This is the first time in history, the first time in US history where a line item exceeded defense spending greater than the following 10 countries' defense spenders combined. United States spends more on defense than the next 10 countries combined. And what is a lot of that defense mentioning? Military-industrial complex, aka lots of silver. Silver drained by aerospace and military began intensifying during World War II, as exhibited by the Manhattan Project. It takes off as Eisenhower predicted it would in his farewell address, discussing the insatiable appetite for resources displayed by the military-industrial complex. John Stevens appeared before Congress in dozens of papers throughout the USA, and the military needs silver. Conductivity, ductility, malleability, reflectivity, corrosion resistance, silver zinc batteries, thermal properties, there is no substitute. Ask yourself this simple question. Do you think silver demand increased industrially since 1969? Yes, by 10. Did the U.S. suddenly develop new silver deposits to satisfy this monstrous demand? No. This is why we've been saying that the U.S. is 79% import reliant on silver, but the number will increase. Meanwhile, Mexico is experiencing massive declines. Moreover, Mexico is signaling that it is securing its energy future, oil, lithium, and silver, and this is already nationalized for the first two commodities. Don't believe me? Then follow the Secretary of Environment and Natural Resources on Twitter. This will be your wake-up call. So where is all this silver coming from when there are disappearing inventories, especially now, considering they may be double counting COMEX and SLV? That's a really good question. So then then they're mentioning it has to be from either private or artisanal mines. This is a possibility. We now have reported from a retired military colonel, USAF retired silver miner living near New Mexico Tech, about several mines across New Mexico and near Hillsborough that had private arrangements with U.S. Department of Energy and U.S. Department of Defense. None of their silver was inventoried, and their confirmation was that this was a typical and customary arrangement, that the practice may continue today. They also stated that the feds took control of the concentrate using Army trucks destined for rail cars at the closest rail yard in El Paso and some to Albuquerque. Over the past 100 years, New Mexico has been a significant location for silver mining, with various mines contributing to the state's mining industry. The state has a rich history of silver mining, particularly in areas like Hillsborough and the Iron King mine. Silver and gold have been found in 163 mining districts and other geographic locations, including New Mexico, with more than 117 million ounces of silver produced in the state from 1848 through 2000. So, that is a possibility. Let's talk about India, or just following the money. Today's post is about this. What if there is, for starters, a company based in India that on the surface looks like a jeweler, but their silver use is coded under jewelry, but the parent company or conglomerate is mainly involved in silver battery business? We are leaning on this direction, an excellent way to launder the silver, or at least a trip to use the Silver Academy Scooby-Doo reporters to, I guess, the Silver Institute size those meddling kids. Now, why did India import the record amounts of silver in 2022? Right? Remember, it was a big difference in 2022. So you could see right here, jewelry fabrication. So he's mentioning if there was a jeweler pretending that that's where all their silver is coming from, but it's actually the battery business as the cover-up. So, there's a lot going on here. Missile batteries, they were mentioning high energy batteries, smoking gun. Number 21 against Silver Institute and proof they do all to smash down silver pricing because they're arms dealers, not silver promoters. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about the Silver Institute being a little corrupt, and not a little corrupt, very corrupt, and also why they're not promoting silver. It's because they aren't silver promoters, which they never mention silver at all. All they do is post their annual reports, and they'll give out some forecasts, usually are very, very bearish on silver, by the way, but they never post anything about it. That's why he's mentioning, they're not silver promoters, they're arms dealers. And why India has found a friend in Durenzio and Bateman. I think Mike Durenzio is from the Silver Institute as well. Don't count me on that, but I know Michael Durenzio. That is his first name, is Michael. I think it's Paul Bateman, if I'm not mistaken, but those two are, I forget what they are for. I'm assuming they're talking about Silver Institute, and that's why India has found a friend with them, but don't take me, at face value for that. So, quote, key raw material in the silver zinc battery is, which constitutes more than 50% of the cost of the battery. The price of silver in the bullion market is subject to fluctuation, which may affect the profitability. So, remember, military and aerospace are the top two silver users, but remember, these are not incorporated. So, there's a lot here. There's a lot here, folks. And that's why I say do your homework. I could go over all this. This video could be 5 hours long, and we still wouldn't even be covering, we still wouldn't even be putting a dent into the amount of information is out here. So, folks, this is real stuff. Anyone who tries to say that, okay, here we go down here. Silver fraud takes on a different context with Paul Bateman and Mike Durenzio's exploitation, which was inflicted by the very people that reported to advocate for, and this is why we call Bateman and Durenzio traitors or snitches or double agents. So, yeah. Anyways, folks, I'll post these articles in the description if you want to check them out yourself, but remember, this is all real. This stuff is happening behind the scenes. Yeah, it is Paul Bateman, I was right, and Michael Durenzio. I know Durenzio, his first name is Michael Durenzio, and I was right. The second guy's name is Paul Bateman. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this video up here. Oh, Volcambi is a member of the Silver Institute. Did not know that. So, man, there's a lot of information here. Oh, yeah, here we go. Michael Durenzio, like I mentioned. Silver Institute, Paul Bateman also was Silver Institute. So, yeah, I was right. So, anyways, folks, this is a lot of stuff to take in. Check this out yourself. Do your homework yourself. But just remember, there's a lot going on here, and it's very, very suspicious. A lot of red flags. So yeah, make sure you subscribe if you enjoy this type of stuff. I post daily videos. Actually, I've been posting multiple videos a day lately. Thanks for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.